A hollow path through falling silence, you step into Vermont like it's a dream just beginning to fade. Snow falls not in flakes, but in slow-motion memories. The trees are skeletal, their limbs clawing the sky, and the only sound is the soft crunch beneath your boots. Not yours, maybe, but someone's. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimes from the college chapel. But it's not Sunday. It's December 1st, 2003, and tonight, Leah Ketteridge vanishes. She's 21, English major, amateur photographer, one of those students who always carried a satchel full of unfinished thoughts and worn books. Professors called her too quiet. Friends said she had a laugh like breaking glass and a habit of walking through snowstorms like she was chasing ghosts. You follow her now, or try to. She's just left her dorm, Converse Hall, bundled in a navy pea coat, a scarf she knitted herself, and tall boots with the fur lining curled over the top. Her roommate says Leah had been staring out the window for hours before she whispered, "I'll be back before dinner." She never comes back, and no one hears her leave. Later, students say they remember her door clicking shut, but no one remembers footsteps. A campus security guard thinks he saw someone heading toward the wooded trail behind the sculpture garden, but he won't swear it was her. Too much snow, too much wind. Within 4 hours, a light search begins. By dusk, the storm intensifies. Visibility drops to near zero. Still, her boots are found near the trailhead, standing upright, side by side, as if placed, not thrown, not discarded, just arranged. The local sheriff, David Renner, arrives around 7 p.m. He stands over the boots, staring at them like they're a riddle left in a chapel. No other prints, not even leading to the boots. The snowfall is fresh. Too fresh, he says. It's covered anything that was there, erased everything but Q. Questions. Inside the boots, still warm. Her phone, left in the dorm, charging, alongside her wallet and coat receipt. On her desk, a notebook left open, one sentence trailing off. It feels like something is waiting in the trees tonight. It's the kind of sentence that might win her posthumous awards if the story had an ending. But it doesn't. Not yet. Sheriff Renner, a man known for his hunting trophies and his silence, mutters something about scent drift when dogs fail to track her. One of the cadaver dogs lies down near the boots and won't move. Later, someone says the dog was just tired. That night, a freshman insists she heard footsteps outside her window around 3 a.m. But there were no tracks there either. Another student posts on LiveJournal that the statue in the sculpture garden was tilted differently that morning, like it had been touched. No one follows up, and the snow keeps falling. Major case detail. Leah's boots found perfectly placed, with no surrounding footprints, creating the central visual mystery. Little known fact. Her final poem draft mentioned a lake without reflection, possibly referencing a real unmarked pond behind the college. Unresolved controversy. Was she seen walking barefoot into the woods? One witness stands by it. Police say it's unreliable, ironic, poetic asides. Her missing persons flyer misspelled Snowstorm. She had bought a return bus ticket home the same morning she vanished. The college later installed extra lighting near the path, but only after 3 more snowfall seasons. The girl who never finished the poem. You leaf through her notebook like you're touching the edges of a mind already fading. Her handwriting slants gently to the right, delicate, uncertain, the ink smudged where her fingers must have hesitated. She wrote in lowercase letters, except for the word snow, which she always capitalized. Her final entry reads like a whisper scratched against glass. They say the storm will swallow everything. Maybe that's what it wants. You're sitting now in her old dorm room, repurposed for storage. Boxes line the walls, labeled with faculty names and maintenance codes. But in the corner, beneath a tarp, is her old desk, still scarred with rings from hot tea mugs, still dusted with specks of glitter from a project she never turned in. There's a photo stuck to the underside of the drawer, a candid, taken on a different snow day. She's in the middle of the quad, arms out, head tilted back, laughing like she just heard something impossible. Her roommate said she used to walk into snowstorms to clean out the static. It made her feel lighter, like the wind understood her. Leah Ketteridge wasn't just a quiet girl who disappeared. She was loud in strange ways, She once told her poetry professor that snow was God's way of hiding evidence. That same professor later found a draft of a poem in her backpack that described a figure watching her through the trees, laughing, not moving. No one paid attention. Not then. She had called her mother the night before she vanished. They spoke for 6 minutes. Leah said, "I feel like the weather's about to do something weird." Her mother thought she meant emotionally. Later, she realized Leah meant it literally. The next day's weather reports confirm a sudden pressure drop just before she vanished, the kind that makes animals go silent and your ears ring. Her roommate, Kayla, gave an interview to a local news crew, standing stiff in the dorm hallway. She said Leah had grown more distant in the final weeks, kept talking about the sculpture garden, said it shifted sometimes when no one was looking. No one knew what she meant. A dorm maintenance worker, older guy, retired army, said he once found Leah standing barefoot in the snow behind the laundry room at 2 a.m. She just looked at him and said, "You don't hear it, do you?" He thought she was high. She wasn't. The university, eager to avoid panic, began spinning the narrative. Stressed student, poor visibility, probable accident. But that didn't explain the boots, or the fact that Leah's favorite camera was missing. Never found, never seen again. She'd used it almost daily. Here's the part that never made it to the news. In her poetry notebook, the final page wasn't written in ink. It was pressed with something, a reddish fingerprint, almost like wax, the shape of a fern. Vermont State Police sealed it, citing contamination. But someone on the cleanup crew later said it smelled faintly like pine or blood. Years later, Leah's story gets picked up by an indie podcast. That's where the rumor surfaces, that Leah had become obsessed with an obscure New England folktale, something about women vanishing in snowdrifts, leaving no sign but frostbitten footprints that vanish before dawn. The tale's origins are hard to trace. No one can find the exact source. But someone found an old flyer in the college archive, 1921. A similar disappearance. Same trail, same boots, same placement. Only that girl's name was Margaret. Major case. Detail. Leah's emotional unraveling in the weeks before. Obsession with storm patterns, folklore, and a specific sculpture on campus. Little known fact. Leah always capitalized the word snow in her writings, and wrote a final page pressed with a waxy, fern-like fingerprint. Unresolved controversy. An indie podcast uncovered a nearly identical case from 1921 involving another young woman in a snowstorm trail. Ironic, poetic. Asides. Leah's favorite photo of herself was one where her face was entirely obscured by snowfall. The sculpture she talked about most was officially titled Echo Without Voice. Her campus email auto-replied for 3 days after her disappearance with the line, "Back soon, let the snow speak." That night, the trees were listening. You step into the woods behind the sculpture garden, and the first thing you notice is how quiet it feels. Not peaceful, but expectant. The trees aren't just bare, they're frozen mid-motion, as if something interrupted them. A wind that came and never left. You follow the trail Leah might have taken that night. Snow-packed, uneven, flanked by frost-choked birches. The cold here doesn't bite. It presses. Locals say the storm that night came down strange. The kind of storm that creaks the windows and curls at the edge of your thoughts. Weather reports showed a sharp temperature drop, but only over a 4-block radius, centered on the college campus. One meteorologist later described it as like the atmosphere held its breath. That breath still hangs in the woods. A maintenance report filed the next morning noted that only one dorm lost power during the storm. Leah's, room 304. The outage lasted precisely 33 minutes. When the power returned, her desk lamp was on, but flickering. The RA found the bulb shattered the next morning. Spiral-shaped glass scattered like teeth across her carpet. Also noted, her window, barely cracked open, had been frozen shut. And then there's the voicemail. At 11:48 p.m., a voicemail was received by Leah's friend, Madison. It was only 13 seconds long. A rush of wind. Then, something. Not quite a voice, not quite a laugh. A low, throaty exhale, and then a click. Madison never played it more than once. Police dismissed it as accidental noise interference. But the audio engineer who examined it for the podcast insisted the frequencies didn't behave like wind. He compared it to a breath being inhaled through wood. You don't know what that means. What you do know is that Leah had been seen, or someone matching her description, barefoot, standing at the edge of the tree line at 3:15 a.m., according to a janitor smoking behind the cafeteria. He said she was holding her shoes, or maybe just standing weird. When asked why he didn't report it, he shrugged and said she didn't look real. He later declined further interviews. That same night, candles burned in 5 windows across campus, students honoring a different winter tradition. One of those students, a girl named Harper, wrote in her diary that the snow had started to fall in perfect circles, not flakes, like the sky was glitching. No one else mentioned that. A week later, a groundskeeper found a red mitten at the edge of the retention pond. It didn't match Leah's, but a forensic tech noted it was sized for a small adult, left-handed, and contained no traces of salt or sand, despite being outdoors for days. And there's the sculpture, Echo Without Voice, a large, contorted bronze figure that had long been a student favorite. Some said it looked like a woman in mid-scream. Others said it looked like something else was emerging from her. Leah had taken over 30 photos of it in her final semester. She kept them in a labeled envelope. She listens when it's quiet. On December 5th, a visiting professor claimed the sculpture had shifted 3 inches east overnight. Maintenance denied it, but archived security footage from that night, pulled a year later by the podcast team, showed something else, static, then 4 frames where the sculpture is blurred. Not moved, just breathing. It's never explained. Police focused briefly on the idea that Leah had been meeting someone that night. A boy from her poetry workshop, P, who later transferred schools. He admitted they'd once kissed in the woods behind the dining hall, but said he hadn't spoken to her in weeks. He had an alibi. He was watching The Ring with 6 other people in the common room. When asked about her disappearance, he said, "She wrote like she already knew how it would end." Major case detail. The voicemail left on a friend's phone, chilling and ambiguous, becomes a central mystery in the investigation. Little known fact. Leah kept dozens of photos of a single sculpture, Echo Without Voice, believing it changed depending on who viewed it. Unresolved controversy. 4 frames of security footage appear to show the sculpture breathing during the night she vanished, never officially acknowledged. Ironic, poetic asides. The janitor who saw her that night quit his job the following spring and moved to Arizona. No explanation. Her voicemail inbox remained active for 2 months. One day, it played back the message in reverse. On the morning of her disappearance, Leah checked out a library book titled Weather as Narrative. It was never returned. A mile from the world, side by side. You step over the rope line the police left years ago. It's brittle now, just a suggestion. The trail narrows into something more primal, more uncertain. Ahead, the trees lean in close, and the snow begins to look like memory made physical. And there they are. Leah's boots. They sit side by side, perfectly upright, as if she'd stepped out of them gently and carefully, without wobbling. No scuff marks, no drag lines, no surrounding prints. Just those 2 boots, undisturbed, with the laces tucked in, like a girl who always made her bed. They were discovered the morning after she vanished by a junior named Elliot, who was out taking pictures of the snowstorm for a film class. He said the boots looked posed, like a fairy tale waiting for the wrong ending. He didn't take a photo. Elliot said when he saw them, he felt something wrong behind him. Not a person, just a pressure, like some. Ion was leaning over his shoulder but breathing through the ground. He dropped his camera lens in the snow. Never found it again. The area was combed thoroughly. Cadaver dogs brought in. Aerial drones flown in tight grid patterns. Nothing. No body. No bag. No tracks. Just those boots. And some say a single feather lying between them. Brown-grey, barred like an owl's. The boots were size 7. Brand, LL. Bean. The left one had a scratch on the toe Leah used to say looked like a falling tree. 2 years later, they were put on display during a campus art project on Loss in the Wilderness. No one mentioned whose they were, and yet, her roommate Kayla later confessed that in the week before Leah vanished, she saw those same boots outside her bedroom door 3 different mornings in a row. They weren't there the night before. When she opened the door to move them, they were always empty, dry. The official theory: Leah wandered disoriented, possibly hypothermic, removed her boots, a known effect of paradoxical undressing, and succumbed to the elements. It's neat, tidy, sanitized for a pamphlet. But this isn't tidy, because there was no trail leading to or from those boots. Fresh snow had fallen through the night, almost 5 inches, and the prints from the searchers were clearly visible. The area wasn't blanketed, it was preserved, like someone, or something, had been waiting for the boots to be found. A local historian brought up a passage from an obscure 1870s diary. A preacher's wife who described the snow children, girls who stepped out of their lives during blizzards and were never seen again. The only things ever recovered, shoes like relics in the frost. The diary was mostly dismissed. Still, it haunted the forums. And then there's the tape. Yes, a VHS tape, mailed anonymously to a local journalist in 2009. No return address, just the words, "When it breathes back," scrawled in Sharpie. The tape itself was heavily degraded, black and white footage, flickering. But it shows, if you watch closely, a pair of boots, nearly identical to Leah's, on what appears to be the same stretch of woods. A figure walks up to them, barefoot, stops, doesn't speak. The footage cuts to static. The journalist tried to digitize it, but the file corrupted 3 times. The original tape, lost in a studio fire a year later. Insurance called it faulty wiring. Some Redditors call it the frost tape. You stand where she might have stood. The cold here isn't just temperature. It's memory. It's ritual. You don't know what happened to Leah, but you know this. Whatever took her, if something didn't want noise. It wanted stillness. Boots arranged like punctuation. A girl's story paused mid-sentence. And nobody's ever pressed play. Major case detail. Leah's boots were discovered a mile from campus, side by side, with no surrounding footprints or disturbance, baffling investigators. Little known fact. A VHS tape surfaced years later showing similar boots and a barefoot figure, dubbed the frost tape by online communities. Unresolved controversy. Roommate claimed she saw the boots before Leah vanished, multiple mornings in a row, always dry, always outside her door. Ironic/poetic asides. Leah once wrote, "If I go missing, I hope someone notices how neatly I leave things behind." Her favorite myth was about Persephone, but she said winter was the better half of the story. The university now hosts a snow vigil each February in her memory. Students light candles around the sculpture garden and remain silent for 33 minutes. Echo without voice. You walk the campus again, but it feels more like wandering through a waking dream. The snow has melted now, years have passed, but time hasn't really moved forward here. It's folded in, like the storm never ended. Echo, without voice, still stands in the garden, bronze darkened by seasons, ice having etched delicate white scars into its surface. Students pass it without looking. Others glance and immediately look away, as if the shape unsettles them in some cellular way. Like it's wrong, but you can't name how. And still, no one's touched the boots. They were removed from display 2 years ago, packed into an evidence box that's since been misfiled. The file itself, case Namshud VTC 12403, is still open but dormant. No new leads, no new theories. Leah's parents stopped speaking to the press after the 5-year mark. In their last interview, her mother said she always said her silence was the loudest part of her. That phrase haunted the forums for months. Then there was the message. Exactly 10 years to the day after Leah vanished, her old email account sent a single message to herself. Subject line, "When it breathes back, body, blank." Investigators said it was likely a phishing attack. Her inbox had been inactive since 2003. Still, her roommate Kayla claimed the timestamp, 11:48 p.m, matched the time of the original voicemail. The message pinged a server not in Vermont, not even in the U.S., but in Iceland. Nothing else followed. And then someone remembered a poem. A short piece Leah had workshopped 3 weeks before she vanished. The professor still had a photocopy, scrawled in Leah's sharp, meticulous handwriting. If the snow hums, don't answer. If the trees lean, don't move. If you hear breathing, it's not yours. Some say it was coincidence. Others say she knew something. There were even whispers, online of course, about an echo society. A student legend, half prank, half initiation, about a hidden place in the woods where students would leave. Offerings, pages of poetry, pine needles, sometimes blood drawn from the thumb with a pin. But that was always dismissed as lore, just bored undergrads mythologizing boredom. And yet, Leah's disappearance was the third vanishing in a 25-year stretch from the same 4-mile radius. The others were never linked. One was a hiker, the other, a local girl known for sleepwalking. Neither case ever reached national attention. Too far apart, too vague, too cold. A local podcaster who spent 3 years independently investigating Leah's case once said the thing that stuck with her wasn't the boots or the sculpture or even the frozen silence. It was the dorm room. She'd gained access during a renovation, years after the fact. Room 304 had been painted over, refurnished, repopulated. But when she stood in the doorway, she said the floorboards creaked like a question. Later that night, her recorder picked up 33 minutes of static. At minute 29, something shifts, a faint click, and then what sounds like footsteps moving across tile. She never released that tape. She said it felt personal. Maybe it was, because this case, this girl, doesn't feel finished. Not like a story, not like a cautionary tale. It feels like a breath that never exhaled, a sentence suspended in a storm, something still waiting for language. And maybe that's what Peter Jackson would have loved most. Not the answer, but the ache of not knowing. Because in this mystery, the silence is the monster, and it never stops listening. Major case detail. Leah's email sent a blank message to itself a decade later from a foreign server, fueling theories about lost time or digital echoes. Little known fact. Leah wrote a cryptic poem predicting her own rules for vanishing, eerily resembling details from the investigation. Unresolved controversy. 3 vanishings occurred within a small radius over 25 years, never officially connected, but now hauntingly similar, ironic poetic asides. Her college repainted her dorm room a soft yellow called Morning Sun. The painters reported a persistent chill in the floor. On the anniversary each year, students claim their music skips for 33 seconds. The podcast that reignited interest in her case is titled, If the Trees Lean. Taken from Leah's own poem, the woods are quiet now, not empty, just watching. Snow no longer falls here, but something colder remains. The kind of cold that isn't about temperature, but memory. A stillness that settles in your ribs and refuses to melt. You walk back across the field behind the old dorms. There's no sign of the rope line. No boots. Just the bare echo of a question whispered into ice. Somewhere a wind chime rings once. Not from wind, just from weight shifting in the air. You try not to think about the email, or the tape, or the poem scrawled in ink that never fades. You try not to think about the footprints that never appeared, or the silence that did. Leah is still missing, but she's also still here, in the breath of fog curling over Vermont hills, in the way the woods hush themselves at night, in the strange instinct you get, walking alone in snow, to keep moving, to not look back, not because you're in danger, but because something wants you to feel like you're not. Some stories end with resolution, others with names, charges, timelines. This one doesn't. This story ends the way Leah left it, unfinished, framed in white, a shape pressed into snow, now gone, a voice left somewhere between breath and page. And maybe, just maybe, some silences aren't meant to be broken, only heard. So if you're ever in Vermont and the trees lean a little closer than they should, walk softly, leave no tracks, and don't answer if the snow starts to hum. Sweet dreams.